The house is mine now, Dad. It's time for you to leave. Those words, spoken by my only son, Bowen, weren't loud. They were quiet, almost casual, which is why they sliced through the air of our Charleston living room like a piece of broken glass. I was standing by the window, looking out at the old oaks draped in Spanish moss, and for a moment I thought I had misheard. Perhaps it was just the sound of the ocean tide carried from a distance. But then I saw his reflection in the glass. He stood behind me, tall and confident in his new Italian suit. Beside him was her, his new girlfriend Savannah, a predatory smile on her perfectly painted lips. She was surveying my living room, the living room I had designed with his late mother, Eleanor, as if she were already planning where to place her furniture. "What did you say?" I asked, turning slowly. "You heard me," Bowen replied, and in his eyes I saw not a flicker of doubt or remorse, only a cold, businesslike gleam. "I got the money. $5 million. That was your final contribution to my future. Now, I'm taking the reins. This house, the company, it's all mine now. And you're the past, a relic. It's time for you to retire, a real retirement, somewhere far from here. $5 million. The amount I had transferred to his account just yesterday morning. My entire liquid capital. The money I had saved my whole life. I didn't give it to him lightly. I gave it for his genius business plan, for his promises to change the world and build a new empire. I gave it because, despite all the warning signs, I still saw in him that little boy who once built sandcastles with me on the shores of Sullivan's Island. And now here he stood before me, demolishing our real castle. A castle I had built not of sand, but of brick, love, and hard work. You're kicking me out?" My voice was hoarse with disbelief. "I'm giving you an opportunity to start a new, quiet life," he said. And I realized he had rehearsed these words. "I've already made arrangements. A wonderful retirement community in Florence, quiet neighbors, 24/7 care. You'll like it there." He held out a folder to me. Inside were glossy brochures of a nursing home. My hands refused to take it. I looked at him, trying to find something familiar in that cold face. And I found nothing. This was not my son. This was a stranger, a greedy predator wearing his face. "Your things. We'll pack your things and send them later," Savannah added, looking me up and down as if I were an old, useless piece of furniture. I said nothing. I just looked at them. And in that deafening silence, I suddenly felt not pain, not offense, but a strange, icy calm. The calm of an architect who sees his creation being destroyed, but knows he laid the foundation correctly. Very correctly. They thought they were looking at a defeated old man. They thought the game was over. They had the money, the house, the power. But they didn't know one thing. They didn't know that I, an old builder, always designed my projects with a secret security mechanism. And they had just locked themselves inside my construction, without the keys to the main doors. Their triumph would be short-lived, very short-lived. For you to understand the full depth of what happened, I must take you back a few months. Back to the moment when the seeds of this betrayal were sown. I am not blind. I saw how my son was changing. It started after Eleanor's death. She was his moral compass, his conscience. When she was gone, Bowen began to drift. He dropped out of his graduate program in architectural history, declaring it boring and unprofitable. He started surrounding himself with people whose only value was measured by the zeros in their bank accounts. I, Atticus Forsyth, made my fortune not on speculation, but on restoration. My company, Forsyth Restoration, brought Charleston's historic buildings back to life. I worked with wood, stone, and history. I knew that true value is created over years, not overnight. Bowen, however, wanted everything at once. He disdained my slow work. He dreamed of innovative projects, global markets, and fast capital. And then one day, he came to me with his project of the century. He laid out glossy presentations before me. It was about creating an exclusive online platform for selling luxury real estate worldwide, using virtual reality and blockchain. The words were trendy. The pictures were beautiful. He spoke of billion-dollar profits, of how he would disrupt the market. "Dad," he said, looking me in the eye with that sincerity he had learned to imitate so well. "This is my chance. My chance to prove I'm worth something. I just need the seed capital. 5 million. That's all I'm asking. Give me this chance and I'll build an empire you'll be proud of." I looked at his plan and saw holes, huge holes. There was no clear market analysis, no realistic forecasts, no understanding of the legal aspects. There was only enthusiasm and greed. A part of me wanted to say no. A part of me wanted to sit him down and dismantle his genius plan molecule by molecule. But another part, the fatherly part, saw a son asking for help. A son who, perhaps, had finally found his passion. I remembered how I started, how I risked everything for a dream, and I gave in. I agreed. "All right," I said. "You'll get your 5 million, but on my terms." And this is where it gets interesting. I called my old lawyer, Clayton, a man who knew all my financial secrets. "Clayton," I said, "I need to transfer 5 million to Bowen's account, but I want it done through our holding company, and I want the transaction to be linked to the Eleanor Protocol." The Eleanor Protocol was our internal name for a security system we had developed years ago to protect our assets. My late wife always said, "Atticus, trust, but always keep a key to the back door." The system was brilliantly simple, yet incredibly complex. The money wasn't just transferred from account A to account B. It passed through a series of trust sub-accounts, each requiring passive verification every 24 hours. This verification was linked to my personal biometric access to our holding company's main server. If I didn't confirm the transaction within 72 hours, the system would automatically interpret it as a hostile asset seizure and freeze all associated accounts, recalling the transaction and returning the funds to the source account. It was a kind of foolproof mechanism, or, as it turned out, a traitor-proof one. I explained it to Bowen very simply. "Son, due to the complexity of my financial structures, the money will arrive in your account in installments over 3 days. It's just a banking formality. Don't worry about it." Blinded by the 6-figure number, he didn't even bother with the details. "Okay, Dad, whatever you say," he replied, already mentally spending money that wasn't even his yet. I signed the contract, a contract that had, in fine print on the last page, a clause about the Eleanor Protocol and the verification conditions. I handed him the pen. "Sign it, Bowen." Without reading, he scrawled his signature, a signature on his own sentence. And so, after receiving confirmation of the first transfer, he came to me. He decided he was now the king. He didn't know that his kingdom was just an illusion. that his throne was set on ice that was set to crack in exactly 3 days. I left my home that evening with only my wallet and phone. I took nothing else. I needed nothing else. I took a taxi to an old hotel in the historic district. As I was leaving, I looked back at my house one last time, at the lit windows, at the silhouettes moving inside. They were celebrating their victory. They didn't know the clock was already ticking, and that I had 72 hours to simply do nothing. Bowen wasted no time. His triumph had to be demonstrated to the world, and he began to do so with a flair that would have impressed a Roman emperor. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but in Charleston, news travels fast. Besides, at my request, my lawyer Clayton had hired a private detective to document my son's every move. I wanted a complete picture of his fall, day one, the illusion of omnipotence. The first thing Bowen did was buy a car, not just any car. He bought a limited edition blue Aston Martin that cost nearly $500,000. He drove it into the yard of my house, the roar of the engine announcing the arrival of the new master. Then, he took Savannah shopping. The boutiques on King Street were emptied one after another, dresses, jewelry, handbags. He threw money around as if it were autumn leaves. In the evening, he threw a party, not just any party. He invited all the cream of Charleston's new society, young startup founders, Instagram models, people who confused popularity with success. Champagne flowed like a river. Music blared until morning. My home, a place where silence and classical music had always reigned, was transformed into a nightclub. The detective sent me photos. I saw Bowen standing on the terrace, raising a glass, the crowd applauding him. He was on top of the world. He thought he had finally escaped my shadow. He even made his first business move. He called my main competitor, a company that had been trying for years to poach my best craftsmen, and offered them a partnership. He wanted to join forces to monopolize the market. Of course, his proposal was naive and unprofitable. The competitor politely declined, surprised by such amateurish behavior. Bowen was furious. He couldn't understand why he, the new king, wasn't being taken seriously. Day 2, the first cracks. On the second day, Bowen decided to reorganize. He showed up at the Forsyth Restoration Office. He gathered my key employees, people who had worked with me for 20 to 30 years, and announced a new era. He spoke of cutting inefficient departments, referring to our unique archival department, of outsourcing, meaning firing our trusted contractors, and of aggressive marketing. Then he tried to make a big purchase. He decided to buy the adjacent building to expand the office. He met with the owner, agreed on a price, and arrogantly told his financial assistant, "Transfer the money." And that's where the problems began. The assistant returned an hour later, pale as a ghost. "Mr. Forsyth," he said, "the bank has declined the transaction. They say there are insufficient funds in the account." "Insufficient?" Bowen screamed. "There are millions in there. Call the bank. Have them sort it out." He called the bank. The manager, instructed by Clayton, politely explained that the funds were arriving in stages and the next installment had not yet arrived. "These are standard security procedures for such large sums, sir," he assured him. Bowen was furious, but had to back down. He didn't understand that this wasn't a banking procedure. It was my Eleanor Protocol, which had already begun to tighten the noose. That evening, the Aston Martin dealership did not receive full payment for the car. The jewelry store did not receive money for Savannah's diamond necklace. The catering company that had serviced the party began to politely inquire about the unpaid bill. Small streams of problems began to merge into one large river. Savannah, who had looked at him with adoration just yesterday, was now looking at him with concern. The sparkle in her eyes began to dim. Day 3. The collapse. On the morning of the third day, exactly 72 hours had passed since my last verification. I sat in my hotel room, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. And I knew that at that very moment, all over the city, all over the country, in all the financial systems connected to my son, the fail-safe had been triggered. The Eleanor Protocol was activated. Bowen's account wasn't just frozen, it was nullified. The $5 million transaction was recalled. The money returned to my holding account, as if it had never left. And my son's account was left with a huge negative balance, the debt for all his purchases and entertainment. The first call was from the Aston Martin dealership. Their tone was no longer so polite. "Mr. Forsyth, if payment is not received by the end of the day, we will be forced to report the vehicle as stolen." Then the owner of the building called. "Young man, you are wasting my time. The deal is off." Then came calls from the caterer, the boutiques, the jeweler. Bowen rushed to the bank in a panic. But there, he was met with a wall. "Sorry, sir. There's nothing we can do. The account has been blocked at the initiative of the holding company. All inquiries should be directed to them." He tried to call me, but I didn't answer. I pictured him, sitting in my office, in my house. His expensive suit now seemed baggy. "Dad?" Bowen's voice on the phone was barely audible. It was not the confident, arrogant tone he had used to kick me out of the house. It was a whisper, the whisper of a man who has looked into the abyss and seen it stare back. I remained silent, letting the quiet do its work, allowing it to fill the space between us, a space once filled with trust, now only with fragments. "Dad, please. I don't know what happened," he continued, his voice trembling like an autumn leaf in the wind. "All the accounts, they're empty. The bank says the money is gone. They say the transaction was recalled. It must be some mistake. You have to call them. You have to fix this." He still didn't understand. In his gilded cage of arrogance, he still believed the world revolved around him, and any problem was just a temporary technical glitch that Dad had to fix. He didn't see that the problem was him. "There's no mistake, Bowen," I replied calmly, my voice echoing in the silence of my hotel room like a hammer on an anvil. The system worked exactly as it was designed to. It protected my assets from unlawful appropriation. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his ragged breathing. "What? What do you mean? What unlawful appropriation? You gave me the money yourself." "I gave you access to the money, Bowen. Access that required my daily biometric verification. It was in the contract you signed without reading. When you showed me the door to my own house, I simply stopped verifying the transactions. After 72 hours, the system interpreted it as a threat and reversed everything. It's called the Eleanor Protocol." "The Eleanor Protocol?" he whispered. And in that whisper I heard not only surprise, but also a hint of sacred horror. He realized he hadn't been defeated by a complex financial system. He had been defeated by the memory of his mother, whose values he had so easily betrayed. But why? Why would you do this? Because you weren't ready for that money, son, or that responsibility. I gave you a chance. I wanted to see what you would do, whether you would build or start to destroy. And you, without hesitation, chose the latter. You held a feast on the ruins of my trust. But the car, the party, the debts. His voice broke into a scream, no longer arrogant, just filled with animal fear. What am I supposed to do now? I'm in huge trouble. The dealer is going to take the Aston Martin. Everyone is demanding money. Savannah, she left, just packed her new things and left, saying she wouldn't be with a loser. Welcome to the real world, Bowen, I said, without a trace of sympathy. In this world, you have to pay for your actions. And you've racked up a very large bill. Every glass of champagne, every smile from a fake friend, all of it had a price. And now it's time to pay. You have to help me, he screamed, his voice turning hysterical. You're my father. You can't just abandon me. It's your duty. And could you, my voice turned as icy as the Atlantic in winter, could you abandon me? Throw me out of the house I built for you and your mother? Send me to a retirement home like useless junk? You made your choice, Bowen. You broke our contract, not the financial one, but the family one. Now live with the consequences. I was about to hang up. I thought the lesson was over, that he had to climb out of the hole he had dug for himself. But then I heard a sound that stopped me, the sound of his sobs. Not angry, not hysterical, full of resentment, but quiet, broken, childish sobs. He was crying like that little boy who had once broken his mother's favorite vase and didn't know how to pick up the pieces. And my father's heart, which I had tried to turn to stone, faltered. I realized that destroying him was easy. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to give him a chance to rebuild himself from the very foundation. Where are you? I asked after a long, heavy pause. I'm at the house, he replied, sobbing. At your house. It's not your house anymore. It's not even mine. It's just a building filled with bad memories. I'll be there tomorrow morning, and we'll talk. Not as father and son, but as creditor and debtor. And Bowen, you'd better be there. I hung up. The night was long. I barely slept. I paced the room like a caged tiger, thinking about what I would say, what path I would offer him. I could just give him a small part of the money back to pay off his debts and disappear from his life forever, leaving him alone with his emptiness. Or I could do something much more difficult, something that would require incredible effort not just from him, but from me as well. Something that could either sever our bond for good, or perhaps in time, truly connect us. The next morning I took a taxi to my house. The door was open. The living room was a wreck. Empty bottles, dirty dishes, forgotten items from his friends, silent witnesses to his 3-day triumph. Bowen himself was sitting on the stair. I will pay off your debts, I began, and Bowen lifted his head, a spark of childish hope in his eyes. But I extinguished it immediately. I will pay for the car, which you will return today. I will pay for the party that became your personal Waterloo. I will pay for the jewelry for your runaway girlfriend. I will clear all the bills so your name doesn't end up on blacklists from which you'd never escape. But it will not be a gift. It will be a loan. A loan? He whispered, the word catching in his throat. Yes, a loan. For a total amount, which Clayton and I will finalize, but approximately $750,000. You will pay me back every cent. With interest, of course, but not with money. You have no money, and you have brilliantly proven that you don't know how to handle it. You will pay this debt back with your labor." He stared at me, uncomprehending, his mind accustomed to easy solutions, unable to grasp my words. "Tomorrow," I continued, my voice allowing no argument, "you will go to the Forsyth Restoration Office. But not to your former corner office with the panoramic view. You will go to the basement, to our archives department. Your new position is assistant archivist. You will sort through old blueprints, organize documents, and breathe the dust of the history you so despised. Your salary will be the minimum wage allowed by the state of South Carolina. 80% of it will automatically go toward paying off your debt. You will live on what's left." His face fell in disbelief. "To the archives? Dad, that's humiliating. I was creating innovative platforms. I was negotiating with international investors. You were playing businessman, using my money like Monopoly chips." I cut him off. "And now it's time to work. You disdained history, disdained the foundation on which everything is built. Well, now you will immerse yourself in that foundation head first. You will study every project we have ever done, starting with the first small gazebo I built 40 years ago. You will see how much work, how many calculations, how many sleepless nights are behind every building that brought us the fortune you so easily tried to squander." I took a step closer, and he instinctively flinched. "This house, you no longer live here. I am selling it. It's too big for me alone, and thanks to you, it's filled with too many bad memories. I will buy a small apartment for myself in the historic district, and you will rent a place, a small room somewhere on the outskirts, whatever you can afford on your new salary. And by the way, you're returning the Aston Martin to the dealership today. You will take the bus to work, like all normal people who earn a living." He was silent. He was crushed. Every word of mine, like a hammer, was destroying the remnants of his old, comfortable world. "This isn't a punishment, Bowen," I said, my voice softer now, though still laced with steel. "This is your only chance, a chance to learn, a chance to understand the true value of things, a chance, perhaps, someday, in the distant future, to become my son again, and not just a disappointment who bears my name." I pulled a piece of paper and a pen from my pocket. It was a simple loan agreement and employment contract that Clayton had prepared for me early in the morning. "Sign it, or you can refuse. Then I'll just turn around and leave, and you'll be left alone with your creditors and your emptiness. The choice is yours." He stared at the paper for a long time. His hands were trembling. This was the second contract he had signed this week. The first he had signed without reading, in anticipation of triumph and an easy life. This one he read very carefully, with the horror of defeat in his eyes. He read about the working hours, the duties, the amount of the debt, the interest. He was reading his sentence. Finally, he took the pen and signed. His signature was not bold and confident like before, but small and uncertain. "Good," I said, taking the paper. "Tomorrow at 8 in the morning. Don't be late. Our chief archivist, Mr. Peters, doesn't like to wait, and he doesn't like slackers." I turned and walked to the door. I didn't look back. I left him sitting on the stairs in the ruined living room amidst the wreckage of his short, bright, and so very foolish reign. The next morning he came to the office, at 8 o'clock sharp. He was without his expensive suit, in simple trousers and a shirt. He looked tired and lost. Mr. Peters, a stern old man who had worked for me for 40 years and knew the history of every nail in this company, met him without a smile. "This way, young man. Here is your workspace. A desk, a chair, a lamp, and here is the first stack of folders from the Magnolia Grove Project, 1985. You need to sort them by lunch. And don't mix up the foundation blueprints with the utility plans." And Bowen began to work. He sorted papers, breathed dust, learned to use the old card catalog. "Titamtum,"